Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Spotlight on the NGV collection, a unique series of live online events designed exclusively for supporters of the NGV. Through this series, we will explore unique aspects of the NGV collection over the coming months. My name is Misha Exarian, and I'm Associate Director of Fundraising at the NGV. And from my remote working location and the location of all speakers leading us today, I wish to start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which this event is taking place. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be joining us today. Before we get started, we have some quick housekeeping notes for everyone joining us. We want you to feel involved in this seminar. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat function to the right of our live stream video. To post a question, you will need to sign into a Google or Gmail account. Just click on the sign in link in the right upper hand corner of the page and follow the prompts. We will endeavour to get through as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation, and we apologise in advance if we aren't able to get to all questions posed today. So thank you again for joining us for this live online discussion exclusively for NGV supporters. While the look and feel of this presentation has been hampered slightly due to Melbourne's current lockdown, it certainly does not diminish the focus of our session. As today, we are very excited to be celebrating the work of Destiny Deacon in her much anticipated exhibition at the Ian Potter Centre, NGV Australia, which is in fact the first exhibition in over 15 years that Destiny has staged. As one of Australia's boldest and most acclaimed contemporary artists, Destiny's work encompasses photography, video, sculpture, and installation, and traverses a world that is often laced in humour and tragedy. Destiny herself shares a strong connection to the NGV with a growing representation in the NGV collection, thanks to the generosity of donors alongside many years of collaboration with our Indigenous Art curatorial team, all of whom I am delighted to say join us today. It is a pleasure to therefore introduce Senior Curator Judith Ryan and curators Myles-Russell-Cook, who did in fact curate this exhibition, and Hannah Presley, who are looking forward to telling us more. So I will start by handing over to Hannah, who's going to chat a little bit more to Myles first up about the process he took in curating this exhibition with Destiny. So thank you, Hannah.
Hi, Misha. Thank you. I too would like to acknowledge that I'm on Gunai country, out here near Lake Tyers. Beautiful country to be on. Myles, whereabouts are you?
Oh, hi, Hannah. I'm coming from Melbourne, so I would like to acknowledge that I'm on the lands of the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung people, the Kulin Nations of Naarm.
Thanks, Myles. So the exhibition technically closed last Sunday. It hasn't been open to the public yet. How are you going?
Yeah, look, it's okay. Thank you for asking. So the exhibition was meant to close last Sunday. It's been a bit of a surreal kind of journey because obviously the show was originally scheduled to open in March on the 27th, and it closed, the gallery closed 2 weeks before it opened, and then again 2 weeks before it was scheduled to open in July. So we've sort of had a few false starts, which has been difficult, I think, for myself and obviously very difficult for Destiny as well. But we're really excited that it is coming soon. It's all there. It's ready to go. We just have to open.
Well, it's 2 years or so of work, Myles. It's been an amazing journey. And how's
me? Sorry, I was going to say for me it's 2 years, but for Destiny it's 30 years. So, I mean, I can't even imagine how she's feeling. But, yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. I would love to ask you when you first met Destiny, Myles.
Well, actually, I first met Destiny when in curating the show. I mean, I'd known about her work for, my whole life. I first learned about Destiny's work, like a lot of people in high school, studying in textbooks.
Talking about that.
Yeah.
Textbooks that we were 90s kids. We were she was the coolest artist we'd ever seen, wasn't she?
Totally.
Like it was she looked more like us. I think that's what was really important about Destiny at that time.
Totally.
Sorry.
I mean, I didn't, yeah, like I'd read about her work and I'd seen her work displayed interstate when traveling with my family, but I had not actually seen her work displayed in Melbourne before, which was also kind of surreal. But I met her for the first time, 3 and a bit years ago when we first started working on this show together. And it's been such a joy to get to know Destiny and to put this show together collaboratively. And also, you know, her longtime collaborator and close friend Virginia Fraser as well, who's been instrumental in the show and who has a lot of works which she has collaborated with Destiny to produce. Yeah. But I guess it's that sort of weird thing about meeting an icon, I guess, you know, like
so exciting.
Yeah. And it's amazing to have this show because, like I said, you know, I'd seen Destiny's work in interstate, but I'd never seen it in Melbourne, and that's kind of this irony, considering that so much of her work is about Melbourne.
It's true. It's yeah, like I was saying before, seeing her in her work in textbooks in high school, it was seeing Melbourne, it was seeing the urban environment, it was seeing city streets and backyards and places that were familiar. And I think I gravitated towards Destiny as well really early because the humour in her work reflected the Aboriginal community that I'd grown up around and that I was involved with. I could see that coming through in a way that I hadn't with some of the masters that we were, you know, that had come before. That humour really had an opportunity to come through in Destiny's work. Did you find her fun to work with, Myles?
I mean, sort of, kind of, I don't know if she enjoys sort of slightly terrorizing curators, but it's both funny and equally terrifying. But look, it was a real joy. She has such a singular way of seeing the world, and that kind of fascination with the line between comedy and tragedy is something that, like you say, you know, coming from Aboriginal family, we know that's really familiar. Like people using comedy to make sense of tragedy or to help communicate things in a way that doesn't just beat you down. And Destiny kind of has this, it's this amazing ability to kind of pull you in with the humor. And she has this kind of famous quote she has where she's once said, "I like to make people laugh, that way they don't feel the knife going in." And it's so true of her work.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Kind of, there is a laugh and a tear in everything. Yeah.
And I think now is the time for this exhibition too. When we think about the themes that Destiny works with so well, these universal themes of loneliness and, you know, you've talked about this humour and this resilience. All of these things are more relevant right now than they've been in a long time for all of us, I think.
It's so true. I mean, I hate that the show has been delayed twice because it's sort of heartbreaking. But in that, I mean, I was talking to my partner the other day and he said, if only you knew some artist who made sense of tragedy through comedy to help you come to terms with this delay.
And so true.
But in these delays, I've sort of had an opportunity to look at some of her work and see them in this new way as well, like Aria's Window, that extraordinary image that shows black and brown dolls stuffed into these yellow milk crates, and it is a reference to commission housing, and I can see from my house the towers in Flemington. So, wow. You know, it's this kind of wild... it's just seeing it all in this new way, and particularly as an artist who's known for making work from a home studio, you know, from her lounge room. And now we're all in our lounge rooms all the time.
I know, we have a lot to learn from Destiny. Like it's amazing time. Now, I think that you may have put together a special video for us, Myles, to share some highlights of the show. Yeah. Let's jump to that now.
For more than 30 years, Destiny Deacon has forged a path as an international artist with a distinct brand of artistic humour that is unlike any other. Descended from the Kuku and Arab Mere people of far north Queensland and the Torres Strait, Destiny has been living and working in Melbourne since coming here as a small child. Her work sits in the uncomfortable but compelling space halfway between comedy and tragedy. Hers is a disturbing visual language which contrasts seemingly innocuous childhood imagery with scenes taken from the darkest reaches of adulthood. Destiny actively resists interpretation, or so-called art speak, instead choosing to let her work speak for itself. Drawing from her vast collection of Aboriginalia, Destiny interrogates the way in which Aboriginal people have been and continue to be misrepresented within popular culture. To celebrate the Australian Broadcasting Commission's 50-year anniversary of Australian television, Destiny Deacon and Virginia Fraser were given unrestricted access to the ABC's archive, possibly the most significant collection of film and television held in Australia. Together, they were able to uncover an assortment of videos by searching for any keywords that started with Aborigine. In this installation, two CRT TV screens play alongside each other, creating a mashup of noise and black and white moving images. As you enter, the TV on the right shows archival footage of Aboriginal children attending school, reading and playing musical instruments, while the TV on the left presents a series of short clips containing a range of people in varying degrees of blackface. From uncomfortable to distasteful to overtly racist, the two channels juxtapose extreme versions of how Aboriginal people have historically been depicted on TV. Historically, photography has been used as a tool to categorise and document Aboriginal people and their lives. In this work, Destiny Deacon reclaims three images taken from a 1960s reproduction of a 1957 Axel Poignant photograph from his photo essay that was originally titled Piccaninny Walkabout and later renamed Bush Walkabout. Destiny turns the colonial gaze back on the coloniser, photographing the photograph and subverting her position as both subject and photographer. The title, Black Like Me, offers a window into Destiny's own interrogation about what constitutes her Aboriginal identity. Black, spelt B-L-A-K, unlike black with a C, was Destiny's way of self-determining her own identity and originating a version of the self and blackness that comes entirely from within. The legacy of this work has been massive. Countless Aboriginal people now self-determine their identity as B-L-A-K. A projection plays a collaborative film Destiny wrote and directed with the late Wiradjuri and Kamilaroi artist and photographer Michael Riley. The film is divided into chapters. In the first chapter, the main character, Dolores, played by Destiny, wakes up and decides she wants to be an artist and get off the dole because she doesn't want to be a bludger anymore. Destiny plays the character Dolores as the ultimate troublemaker. She's sort of the extreme, outrageous, alter ego version of herself. Dolores lacks empathy and will do anything to avoid making life easier for her co-stars. She uses acerbic, high-energy dialogue to ridicule the negative stereotypes that persist about Aboriginal people. How? By becoming the most extreme version of one. In the same way Destiny uses dollies and photographs to reflect and parody the world around her, Dolores, the character, exposes uncomfortable stereotypes about Aboriginal people by becoming an exaggerated, extreme, narcissistic and outrageous version of herself. Melbourne Noir is a poignant and melancholy memorial of black life in inner city Melbourne. The installation is made up of 25 photographs, 3 sculptural dioramas, a video projection and wallpaper which has been digitally plan printed from photographic sources. The wallpaper represents sites of cultural significance to Melbourne's Aboriginal community, such as the Carlton Gardens and the Yarra River, Fitzroy's Nicholson Street and Gertrude Streets and the Suburbs Housing Commission estate, as well as other sites relevant to Destiny's social and cultural history. A series of portraits of the artist's friends and family are also included in the installation, along with a trailer for an unmade feature film titled Melbourne Noir. The film poetically reflects upon everyday social life among black communities in urban Melbourne. In the 3 photographic dioramas with holes cut out for visitors to insert their faces and pose for photographs, Destiny subtly implicates non-Indigenous viewers by encouraging them to swap roles with Indigenous people and put themselves and their identity on exhibition. In this installation, Colourblinded, 6 black and white photographs taken on orthochromatic film, a type of film that's sensitive to all visible light except red, hang in a yellow room. The photographs, which feature various dolls in different social situations, are displayed near 3 perspex cubes stuffed to the brim with gollywogs and white styrofoam balls. The 3 cubes, each titled Snowstorm, draw a connection between the white cube of the art gallery and the way that Aboriginal art is often presented in a clinical or museological environment. Together, the photographs and the sculptures form an installation that's lit with low-pressure sodium lamps, much like the ones used to light roads and freeways. The resulting effect is the room which pulsates with an intensely yellow glow. The white cube has been contaminated, and so as we enter the space, we notice our skin tone takes on the same saturated hue as the walls in the photographs. In here, we are literally left colour-blinded. In 2 videos featuring John Harding and Sophie Harding, both actors intermittently address the audience. We're made to feel like we're an intruder who's accidentally stepped through a stage door and is interrupting a private presentation. Over the past 30 years, Destiny has created a number of domestic interiors inside the gallery setting. At varying scales, these lounge rooms or kitchens are always to some extent based on Destiny's own home. Objects, photographs, posters, flags, various knickknacks turn otherwise ordinary domestic interiors into identifiably black spaces. Destiny in Virginia created this interior specifically for the NGV. The room is filled with Destiny's personal collection of kuri kitsch, abject knickknacks which at best portray Aboriginal people as decoration and at worst perpetuate overtly racist stereotypes. Over the years, Destiny has amassed a considerable collection of kuri kitsch. In her own words, she's been rescuing kuri kitsch since forever. She said, "In the beginning I wanted to rescue them because otherwise they'd end up in a white home or something, somewhere where no one would appreciate them." By massing her personal collection and putting it inside the gallery, Destiny challenges audiences to consider how everyday material culture can be and often is inherently racist. Destiny also elevates these objects, removing their status as derogatory and imbuing them with a second, more dignified life. In 1996, the much-loved Eleanor Harding, Destiny Deacon's mother, passed away, and 2 years later, Destiny produced a moving tribute to her life. Postcards from Mummy tracks the story of Eleanor's journey from Cooktown to Brisbane. In part, it's an acknowledgement of her mother's legacy, but it's also an exploration into how a person's own identity can be shaped by the past experiences of their family. Destiny described making this work as coming to terms with Mummy's beginning. On one hand, the journey was a way of coming to terms, but in addition to that, Postcards from Mummy also introduces audiences to a universal narrative of Indigenous dislocation from place. Destiny's attempt to reconnect with the places of her ancestors paints herself as a sightseer on her own country, a visitor in her own home. The postcard is no longer simply a means of sharing travel or sending work back home, but a metaphor for Indigenous connection and disconnection from place. Each image invokes nostalgia, leaving audiences feeling homesickness for a place that both is and isn't home.
It was wonderful, thanks Myles, to be taken on a guided tour of some of the pockets of this amazing Destiny Deacon retrospective, because it's long overdue in Melbourne. I'm speaking to you from Wurundjeri country, and I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land And it's also the land that Destiny has lived and worked on for over 3 decades. She's lived and made work in Brunswick, in the country of the Wurundjeri people. And she is very much a Melburnian. We claim her as our own, even though she was born in Maryborough in Queensland. But she is such a large part of the Koori community, and she's perpetually at exhibition openings and at Koori events, and that's why we love her and we love her work. And I want to share with you, Myles, today some of the things that I enjoy about Destiny's works. It'd be very nice to sit down and have a cup of tea with Destiny. And that's really what happens when you walk through her exhibitions, because it's like she's talking to us through the spontaneity of her photographs. And in her photographs, for someone who grew up at a time even earlier than Destiny, but some of the nursery rhymes, the Disney films, The Wizard of Oz, some of the vox pop and the popular culture that she brings to our minds, it sort of gives us that sort of amazing sense of play, but it's also some of the things that as we were growing up, we loved so much. I mean, it's fabulous to go into the exhibition and see the nursery rhyme ride a cock horse to Banbury Cross to see a fine lady upon a white horse. Rings on her fingers and bells on her toes, she can make music wherever she goes. And we love that rhyme. And then we're sort of sucked into this sort of warm and fuzzy sort of sense of our childhood. But suddenly we see ride a cock horse. There's a black dolly sitting on a rocking horse, and that's in front of a map of Australia with all the colonised states and territories, and it's a sort of Western idea of mapping that is not, and it brings us close into what Australia has lost and what Indigenous people have lost. And I think the dolls that appear in Destiny's work, there's so many things that they call to our minds. We sort of see, I mean, dolls are cuddled, dolls are loved, but also there's a sort of there's a hidden side to dolls. They can be somewhat creepy. And there's a sting in Destiny's works. She's not ladling out sugar, spoonfuls of sugar like Mary Poppins to make the medicine go down. Rather, it's a bit like William Blake and O Rose, thou art sick, the invisible worm that crawls in the night and the howling storm has found out thy bed of crimson joy, and his dark secret love does thy life destroy. It's a sort of, there's this hidden sort of darkness there that is actually life as we all live it, and it's life that Destiny has lived. But it's not sort of something that is spelt out in art speak, because Destiny gets us to trust the photographs. She lets her photographs do the talking, and it's very important to her that they have a direct message. So that's something that I think I really admire in her practice. But it's also that despite the fact that the work is seemingly slapdash, it's also very cunningly and intellectually put together because the message is extremely subtle and it comes at us from different directions. So for me, I'm really looking forward to seeing all of these previous solo shows that have often been shown at Ross and Oxley, and snippets of things that appeared in the Clemenger or other exhibitions, brought together into a massive opportunity to walk through and see bodies of work together, ricocheting in this mashup of what destiny is. Now, sometimes it's very hard to get sentences or explanations or intellectual speak out of Destiny because she has the view of not trusting the teller but trusting the tale. When you read a book, you look at the book, not what the author wants you to see in it or says in it. And this is sort of an important element of what Destiny is showing us all. And it's also what she's showing us herself, but she's also showing us ourselves.
Far out, Judith. I think I've got goosebumps hearing you talk about Destiny in that way. I mean, I've been working with her for 3 years, and like you say, it's this discovery of layers upon layers within her work. And we closed the show in March, and then we're planning to open in July. And now, obviously, it's delayed again. And just in that window of 5 months or whatever it was, looking at work, I keep learning more and more about work, and it keeps revealing more and more. And like you said, the titles and this kind of appropriations of song lyrics and of childhood nursery rhymes. There's always clues. There's clues to the work. The one that kind of hit me recently was one of the new pieces that she produced for the show, which you would remember when we first got those images set to a chair at the table. And I didn't really process that image at first. I kind of, it took a while to explain itself, I suppose, to reveal itself. But now hearing you talk about Destiny and talk about the utter love that the Melbourne art community has for Destiny, despite there having been this kind of overdue big solo retrospective show. That work, A Chair at the Table, which literally is Destiny's way of acknowledging that she has, through this show, been given a chair at the table. It's kind of, she doesn't like explaining her work. She really makes you work for it. But it's been quite extraordinary to kind of, I think the first kind of trick I've found with any of Destiny's work is probably just, it's always in the title. There's something in the title that alludes to the explanation of the work. And it's been a real kind of joy to be able to work with her and try and dig deep into some of those works. But hearing you speak about her is so, like I said, you've given me goosebumps.
Well, I think it's also the fact that we're in the time of Black Lives Matter, and that's why I particularly wanted to talk about a great series of hers called Whacked.
Yes.
Because these she masked. I mean, friends of hers were masked in long johns, and their faces were painted in with red, smeared with red lipstick, and they were depicted in front of the Australian flag near the Union Jack, and it just sort of goodness me, it made me think of the Ku Klux Klan. It made me think of white supremacy and the Australian flag and what had happened in the displacement of Indigenous people. There was so much in black deaths in custody, the stolen generations, and the booing of Adam Goodes. I mean, look, Myles, it's an incredibly powerful series, and you don't need loads of words, because what art is and why we enjoy art is because we are looking at works of art. And that is the experience we're all going to have when Destiny opens. And we can walk through and have all of these intimate conversations through the works of art.
Yes. You said that to me. So when I first started out working at the gallery, and we got a complaint from some visitor, complaint online that said, why isn't, there's not only 100 words on the labels, that's not enough. And you just said, well, you're not in a library, you're here, you're in a gallery. And part of the point is to stand in front of the work and have an encounter with the work. And I think Destiny's kind of hesitation to explain her work, really that gets to the heart of that, letting the work speak for itself. And the series you're talking about, whacked with those kind of images of terrorism and surveillance, and they don't need explanation. They are so familiar. And it's there's a lot of work in the show that now, since going into quarantine and stage 4, and it will since COVID-19 altogether, I'm thinking of, that Arrears Images, Arrears Windows image that I mentioned before. Well, I can see the commission flats in Flemington from my that shot, which just absolutely kind of gets to the heart of the experience of being Black living in a city, is so powerful. And then, there's more works that seem to be kind of revealing this experience, just the violence against the Black body. And I'm thinking of Lisa Belair's poem about Aboriginal deaths in custody and these kind of ongoing themes that Destiny's been interrogated, which in 2020 we're still seeing on the news every day.
Yes, I think this, the battered, decapitated Black dolls, and also, that work of Destiny's that she says, I seen myself in what's happened to these Black dolls, and it comes straight home to haunt you.
Yes.
I think that I also find that the colour-blinded body of work is exceedingly powerful. It's a very important body of work, and the works with the gollywogs and polystyrene white balls inside the glass cubes is sort of her send-up of high art.
Yes.
And it bears in mind, it reminds me of the sort of the exhibition that was held in New York, the minimalist exhibition, John Weber Gallery. He just had one Papunyatula painting by Anajari Jacamara in a white cube. That was the only work in the exhibition. This sort of showing of Destiny and other Indigenous artists' work in a white art context, all neatly framed and according to Western ideas of art, is a sort of sterile approach to what Destiny and others are doing, and that's why it's great to see that. And also with the use of the yellow lighting, which has this weird effect that's going to take the colour out of everything, and then it'll be like we're all walking around colour blinded. And a lot of us have been blinded to the importance of Indigenous culture, art, music, literature, ideas and being in Australia. And that's also another thing that hits me with that seeing that installation, and it's going to be very exciting to experience those weird effects of the yellow lighting.
Well, I think, and having lived now in this kind of digital world where we're kind of constantly on Zoom calls and screen time has replaced any kind of encounters that we're having or social interactions we're having, being able to switch from that digital to the immersive, a work like that can only be experienced in reality. It's great to see the virtual tour, but there is nothing like being in the space and having that immersive experience, which the same could be said for her Melbourne Noir series as well. It's about actually role playing, and it's about being able to participate in the installation. I wanted to get your thoughts on how the lounge room, in a similar way, takes that idea of being an Aboriginal artist who is on display in the white cube, and how Destiny has literally taken her lounge room and transplanted it into the gallery, and what that sort of, how that reads to you as someone who has seen Indigenous art curated and has worked in this space for so long. I mean, how would you describe that work?
Well, I'm an arch maximalist, Myles, as you well know, so I say the more the merrier. I absolutely adore that doll's house of the lounge room, because this collection of dolls from umpteen op shops, all piled up, and it's like a living, breathing, dancing community of Indigenous people all gathered together to have loads of fun.
Yes.
I think she's also thinking of a time when the only presence of Indigenous people was through this kitsch, Kuri kitsch. And, it's also the case that Black women were not in nursery rhymes or Disney films or The Wizard of Oz or some of the cartoons that we all know well, and therefore she feeds the Black body back into, the three graces.
Yes.
Hanging the washing out on the line. There's all of this. I mean, and there are all those, there's fabulous furniture as well. And it's sort of enabling us to share Destiny's own lounge room. And it's almost like we're at one with her in her own house, which is a great privilege. Right. It's an intimacy, and it sort of brings us to the place where she makes all her art.
Exactly. I think you're so spot on in that kind of elevating and recasting of these protagonists from pop culture. There's another body of work that was originally, well, it was originally not on the checklist for the show, but it just arrived from the framers, and it was so fantastic that we included it, where she's taken those, she's recreated these sort of VHS kind of jackets for films that she's invented, where she recasts Black actors. So, Peach Blossom's Revenge, and then Dracula, which is the kind of Black Dracula, and these amazing films. And the same thing with the series of The Little Mermaid, where, you've got this Disney film with the main character, the Little Mermaid, who will do anything she can to change herself so radically so that she can get the man. She will give up her voice and she'll lose her tail, whereas Destiny's Black mermaids, they sort of sit on their phone and they have no desire to change who they are. And it's this kind of brilliant thing that she does, where she's able to kind of challenge us to question everything that we've seen growing up, everything that we've seen in our childhood, and ask kind of, how would you feel seeing that if you were Black? How would you feel seeing these representations of Black people, which are mostly derogatory? And how would you feel never seeing yourself represented in a way that is positive?
But when you're in front of her work, they don't seem derogatory anymore, because she's rendered them as works of art and given them another persona.
Exactly.
I think one of the great works in her career is her work on adoption.
Mm-hmm.
With the black jelly babies in the special patty, you know, paper cups in which we make little iced cakes, and it's sort of it's such a sort of terrifying image about the stolen generations. But there's also that sort of dark allusion to sort of cannibalism and other things in there. And yet, you know, we used to go to the cake shop, sweet shop, and we'd buy the little dollies. And if we liked the taste of licorice, we'd ask for the black ones because the others were a bit sugary. But the point is, it's also something from childhood. And then when we learnt to make cakes, it was always we'd make the little ones with the patty pans and, you know, bake them in the oven with our grandmothers. And I just sort of think that there's all of these sort of parts of our lives that also have this sinister edge. And I think that that's such a sort of an important element of what has happened in Australia, the stolen generations, and it's all condensed in this amazing image, and that's the power of the artist.
Absolutely. Hey, I feel like we could talk all day about this, but I'm aware that we don't have all day, and I did want to talk to you about a really important video work by Destiny that I've chosen to include in the show, the collaborative film with Michael Riley, I Don't Want to Be a Bludger. So you brought this into the collection about, what, two and a half years ago, something like that. And to me, this is one of Destiny's absolutely most iconic masterworks. So can you talk a little bit about the film I Don't Want to Be a Bludger? I know we have a clip that we're going to play for everyone in a minute, but I thought maybe you could introduce it first.
Oh, well, I think that this film and the sublime collaboration with the Wiradjuri Kamilaroi photographer Michael Riley, it really hits at Destiny's amazing sense of humour. And she takes and she makes mock of the most obvious of stereotypes. The lazy black person bludging on the economy, getting handouts all the time, and she makes herself seem as lazy as possible. And I just find that when she suggests that she could do an art course, and then, you know, she could learn to be an artist. And I just think that that's there's so many sort of negative stereotypes that are just smashed, and people can have a good solid laugh at the sort of inaccuracy of these stereotypes, and also what Destiny has had to endure putting up with them.
Yes.
For all these years. And you also see other of her favourite characters. I mean, the wonderful Lisa Belair, who took photographs of everyone at openings and was just such an imaginative visionary. You you just see members of her extended family. It's wonderful. And then once again, it's filmed in a domestic interior. So she's like we are now. She's living at home, she's working at home, and she's transforming the domesticity that exists into these little gems.
Judith, it has been such an absolute pleasure to talk with you about this. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to now hand over to the clip from I Don't Want to Be a Bludger, and then we're going to take some questions from the audience. But again, thank you so much, Judith.
Oh, it was an extreme pleasure. Thank you, Myles.
All right, over to the clip now.
Who's running this course?
I am.
I wanted to do the art course, so artist.
Well, first of all, we have to interview you to see if you're eligible to do the course.
Yeah, I bought some of my pictures.
Okay. Well, can you tell me a bit about yourself first?
Well, my name's Dolores, and I've done some artwork to show you. Is that good enough or what?
Well, maybe let's have a look at it first.
There's nothing wrong with it. Reconciliation
What do you call
dolls.
this?
Reconciliation dolls.
Oh, my goodness.
And more. And more. And more.
Well, Dolores, oh.
And look at this.
Tell me about the reconciliation dolls
Oh,
first.
look. Just look at this too.
And what's all this about?
Pictures. About Aboriginal life.
Can you explain it to me?
Well, there's a man, there's an emu and a kangaroo. What more do you want?
Well, this course is a bit more advanced.
And there's another
than
one
that.
here. Hold on. Oh, God. Oh, sorry. And a fish, X-rayed, and boomerangs. I reckon I'm good enough for this course.
Oh, wow. Well, we've got to know a bit about your background. You could be anybody.
Well, I'm the doll, and I want to do a course.
Well, this is actually what the course entails. We do art history, we do a bit of cultural studies. They're the two main core
What
subjects.
culture?
Aboriginal culture and Torres Strait Islander
Yeah,
culture.
well, I already know it.
Well, we don't know that. This is what I want to find out, you know, what you know about those particular
Well, can I get on study
subjects.
grant or what?
Well, no.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know whether you're eligible, and the way your
Well,
attitude is now, I don't
What's
really
wrong with
fancy
me? Who the hell are you? Where are you from?
it. You can't question me, my Aboriginality.
Where?
You just walked in the
Bloody
door.
coconut, I'm sick of them.
You just walked in the door, and if you want to do this course, you've got to be serious about it.
Well, I can do all these things.
How do I know that? What have you got? What is this a proof that you've got that you can actually do art? What does this mean?
What's wrong with that?
This is what my
What's wrong with that?
2-year-old child does in kindergarten.
You're just being racist. You don't understand. You don't understand what an artist is all about.
I do. You don't understand what this course entails. It's a very high standard.
Who the hell are you to stop me doing my
at this
career?
college.
Who are you to stop me doing a career?
I'm not trying to stop you. I'm just trying to explain to you that this course is a very serious thing, and I don't see this as being serious art.
What's wrong with that? It's about reconciliation. Look.
Well, I think what you need to do is maybe fill out the forms today.
What form? Where?
These forms here.
What? Where?
To apply for the course. Here's a pen. Write your details down.
The only thing I can answer is whether I'm male or female. Look at the rest of the crap I have to write.
Well, every student that applies for the course has to fill out one of those forms.
And who does it go to?
It goes to me first, and it goes through the various stages of the bureaucracy within this college.
Prisoner? Invalid pension? It's not my course. Aboriginal? Not. How am I supposed to answer all these questions?
Well, all the other students find them quite easy.
I could do my signature. On the date, what is it? Anyway. And then what?
I need all your particulars.
What? What are you, the tax bloody young man?
All students have to fill out their details.
No. I'm sick of everyone wanting to know everything about me. I've had enough of it.
Well, that's all part of being involved in this course.
Well, do I get in or what? I don't want you to...
Take your file.
Who wants to bring this bloody lousy course? I'm going. You can stick your course up your ass.
Oh, don't call us, we'll call you.
Bloody coconut. I'm out of the door.
Amazing. That it's wonderful to be able to see just a snippet of that film, and then obviously it's just very, very exciting to be able to provide everybody with a taste for the exhibition. As soon as we can reopen the gallery, everybody will be able to experience it as well, and finally see firsthand what Judith, Myles and Hannah have been able to provide us with some insight with today. So thank you so much to Judith, Myles and Hannah. We really appreciate it. This actually also provides me with a great opportunity to mention some of the donors who assisted the NGV in realising the Destiny exhibition, including Craig Semple, who supported the video we just saw, Dylan Davidson and Rachel Jacobs, as well as the copyright agency Cultural Fund, who supported the exhibition catalogue. I also wish to take this opportunity to recognise the long-standing dedication of all supporters of Indigenous art, whose steadfast commitment is truly valued by everybody at the NGV. So we thank you. And it is now my great pleasure to be able to bring Myles back for a few questions about the exhibition. So I invite you to submit some questions, any questions that you may have for Myles. Please feel free to submit your questions in the live chat. And so far, we've already received a handful of questions coming forward. Margaret asked earlier, Myles, how do you think the audiences will respond to the exhibition in a post-COVID-19 environment?
Oh, thank you, Misha. That's a tricky question because obviously I won't know until it's open. I think, watching that video that we did back when it was before stage 4 lockdown and seeing, so many of the works that are interactive, I'm thinking in particular Melbourne Noir, where, now it feels very different to kind of place your face into those cardboard cutouts. I'm not sure that, we're going to have to change the way in which some people interact with some of these works. But I think that the main thing is that people have just been craving an opportunity to be in the space and to be with work. And like I said before, it's such an incredible immersive series of installations that I think people will really respond very well to it. It's wonderful to do these events online, but there's nothing quite like being in person, is there?
Oh, definitely. And I think that we're all really craving the opportunity to finally go in and see this exhibition. And as you and Judith, we've all mentioned that it's over 15 years in the making for Destiny. So it's a great pleasure to be able to finally deliver it. Sorry, you go. Sorry.
No, I was going to say the first work's in the show, from 30 years ago, but most of the work that Destiny produced, she's made in her lounge room. And so I think that's another thing that people will respond to, is this experience of us all kind of thinking about the outside world, making work and writing about the outside world from our home and, from being isolated. And so I think seeing things like the lounge room in the gallery is going to be particularly powerful for people, having come from this kind of living our entire lives in the domestic interior and then going into the gallery and seeing that, so much creativity and so much extraordinary work has come out of Destiny's working isolated in her own lounge room over 30 years.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Well, there's creativity afoot for all of us working from home at the moment, no doubt. And Myles, Victoria asked earlier whether Destiny chose the colour of the rooms as well. And I guess this is possibly in reference to the mention that you made previously around the yellow rooms, for example.
Yes, she did. So the yellow room is actually white walls, but it's the yellow sodium lights that create the incredible high key vivid yellow. And that is just, there's no other lighting in the room. There's no gallery lighting. It's just the sodium lights. And that is a really, that's a really integral and powerful part of that work. But in terms of the other wall colors throughout the show, the green in the lounge room, that's directly modelled off the green in Destiny's own lounge room. And so when you see a lot of the photographic works, which she has taken in her home studio, you will see those green walls, and it's a very particular colour green as well. So we did a huge number of colour samples and had to take it across the road and try and see what it looks like in the lighting at NGVA compared to in our design studios. And the same thing was with the Bludger film, which plays in a red room, working very closely with Destiny to get the exact colour red that she wanted for that space. She had quite a strict colour palette when we were looking at furniture, and it was kind of red, black, and white. She didn't want the furniture to have a personality more than the work, which I think was really important. But you'll see in when you see the particular, I'm thinking of that amazing work, Heartbroken, with the green wall and the broken heart filled with Cupid dolls. It's exactly the same green as in the lounge room.
So you and our exhibition management team, working closely together with Destiny, have tried to be very, very true to where the pieces were created. Is that right?
Yeah. And we've taken so much inspiration from her own home. And so the furniture that is throughout the gallery, it's not just standard kind of gallery benches. There's a lot of instances where we've replaced the furniture with couches, so kind of, again, playing on that domestic interior and using the couches in those spaces. Destiny had a very particular vision for what the couch would look like, the colour, and it kind of all goes back to when she first started collecting the kitsch. So it's actually really elegant, sort of mid-century looking furniture, which is a bit of a timestamp to when she first started amassing her collection.
And I mean, in response to that, it sounds like it's quite an immersive space that people can enjoy.
I think so. Well, that's the plan. It's I think it's unexpected because we really treated her work as the sophisticated contemporary art that it is. So there are lots of amazing clean moments, and where you can really understand the photography and you can see it displayed in a very conventional gallery setting. But then there are these moments of kind of interludes, like the Melbourne Noir installation, the lounge room, colour-blinded, and the entrance hall with the 2-channel videos. It just kind of gives it a bit of pace, which has worked well, I think.
And Myles, Rebecca asked through the live chat earlier, what were some of the challenges with putting together the show? Did you have any personal challenges that obviously, no doubt, COVID has certainly been a challenge for all of us. Would you say that was probably the biggest challenge for you and Destiny?
Yes, it was, but also I think that Destiny really, her the way that she doesn't explain her work, it presented challenges, but they were sort of welcome challenges, in that it gave me an opportunity to really look very deeply into her practice and really research and understand without being spoon-fed. She's not she wasn't sort of hands-on in that she didn't want to kind of co-curate. She was very trusting of the selection of works that I put forward. And so, yeah, I guess obviously the biggest challenge has been COVID, but another one has been just trying to really understand the layers of complexity that go into each of her works. And I feel like we've been able to do that and really provide that very rich layer of content.
Definitely. And something that is worth noting is that ahead of us being able to go back into the gallery very shortly, fingers crossed, we will be producing a 3D virtual tour that people can access online. So that's a way in which people will be able to experience this much sooner as well. And really, as a dedication to you, Myles, the care and attention that you took in terms of being able to demonstrate Destiny's legacy, and it's something that we all look forward to sharing. One last question that I have for you is actually, what's your favourite work? What are you most looking forward to sharing with everybody?
Sort of impossible question to answer. I feel, when you get a CD for the first time and you listen to it and then you think, oh, that's my favorite song, and then you listen to it a month later and the song that you didn't like at all, suddenly that's your favorite song. It's a little bit like that with Destiny's work. I've sort of been falling in love with everything at a different point. Rather than having a favorite work, I think the works that are speaking to me at the moment as being particularly relevant, obviously her new body of work, Dolly Eyes, is incredibly powerful because everywhere we go now, we're just seeing people reduced to just their eyes with a mask and a beanie or whatever people are wearing, and just kind of seeing these two signifiers, skin color and eyes, as reducing everybody down to this kind of these two basic things. That's hit really, it feels prescient, it's kind of hit a bit differently. And then, as we mentioned before, the Gazette series, which looks at life in commission housings, again, as everybody is sort of isolated in our own homes. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have, a house I'm at the dining table, so, at the same time I can head up. But you think about, some people during isolation who would be in one-bedroom apartments, some people with multiple people in very small spaces, and to get that kind of, it's given a new reading to that work, I think, the experience of being isolated. So that's another work I'm, at the moment, feeling particularly in love with.
Mm. Well, that's very, very poetic, Myles. Thank you so much. And a big thank you to Judith and Hannah for joining us earlier. It was a real pleasure to be able to share this exhibition with everybody. I also wish to thank Sari de Mallory and Aaron Whitfield, Tom Doman, and all the staff who have worked behind the scenes to produce today's online session, which took a very different feel from recent sessions as well. So we hope you enjoyed today's talk, and we look forward to seeing you at our next online event when our curators will discuss art and activism, exploring the artworks and artists who have played a profound role throughout history in challenging established thought and creating a more equitable culture. So do stay tuned for further information. In the meantime, though, from my bedroom and from Myles's dining room, we thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a lovely evening. And from everybody at the NGV and Myles, myself, and everybody, we thank you so much for your support towards the gallery. Thank you again.
Thanks, Misha.
Bye.